The service will care for more than 1,000 dying patients this year, offering stress management, music therapy and artistic activities. It'll open 3 days a week, helping people between 20 and 81 years. Demand for the facility is already outstripping supply, demand growing by 20% a year.
The community is getting older, and that proportion of elderly people are developing proportionately more cancers and other life-threatening diseases. So the burden on palliative care services is becoming greater.
With euthanasia now illegal across the country, Professor Ravenscroft believes further funds should be injected into palliative care. He's urging both the state and federal governments to support schemes like the one operating at Waratah.
Yeah, I got a good start, and then deadness put a little bit of pressure on me, and then he ended up crashing. So, and I thought he was still there, and I come up to the inside of one corner, and my front wheel washed out and hurt my shoulder again. Close to 200 students were involved in today's forum, entitled Footprints for Change. Students split into workshops to concentrate on whale rescue, native plant propagation, water quality and environmentally friendly ways to control pests. Organisers were delighted with today's attendance and the students' enthusiasm.
Well, the main thing is it's because it's their future. That's what we're trying to sort of really enforce with this whole thing, is to let them know that it is their future. The current decisions that are being made, the decisions made today, are affecting their future. So it's important that they play a role in actually making the right decisions to set up a really positive future.
Students were also given the chance to voice their concerns about the environment and what they think needs to be done to improve it. Their views will now be included in Maitland Council's 30-year strategic plan. Students say the forum has been a positive experience and they've learned a great deal from the organisers.
I think they've given a message to everyone that the youth really are there and they've got to take responsibility for it, and that they've just got to start looking after the environment because it's their future.
Jenny Crouch, NBN News.
The long arm of the law shook off its intimidating presence to reach out to 150 school children at Kurri Kurri today. In a bid to curb youth crime and better understand the needs of adolescents, police officers took time out to listen to what the students had to say.
Well, it's a great way to break down the barriers between police and young people. It's often said that today's young generation is very different. Well, that's probably true, but the only way to find out how different and their priorities is to listen to them.
Mark Latham says it's also important politicians get involved with youth issues to formulate relevant policies. The workshop gave students the chance to learn more about the law and the consequences of breaking it. Mr Latham says the workshops help build trust between police and youth and should be included in the school curriculum. Simone Cobb, NBN News.
Prince Street may have been a neighbourhood watch area, but nobody noticed when the couple's mail lay uncollected or that Mr Post had not walked his dog for at least a week. At around 2 this afternoon, the couple's gardener stopped by. David Latham had mowed their lawns on Monday. He said they didn't appear to be home then, nor when he visited again later. Today, the television was still on, an odour filtering from the house.
I was a bit concerned that something was wrong, so I come out of my way to stop and have a look. And that's when I spoke to the neighbour and he hadn't seen anybody, so the back door was unlocked, so we went in and found what we found.
Inside, the body of Mrs Post on the bedroom floor, where she had apparently died at least a month ago. Her husband's body was found in the bathroom. Police believe he had probably died around a week ago. Trapped inside the house was the couple's Chihuahua dog, now being cared for by the RSPCA. Their gardener for 18 months, Mr Latham said he hadn't seen Mrs Post for some time.
I assumed she was away on holiday. She said she was, she was sick and she said she was going to see her daughter up the coast.
Neighbours say the couple in their 60s were very quiet and kept to themselves.
At this stage, police don't know how the couple died. Investigations are continuing. Sarah Griffiths, NBN News.
Five people were on board for a joy flight this morning as the plane set out for takeoff from Luscantire Airfield. However, the pilot was forced to abort the takeoff as the plane's performance controls were giving inaccurate readings. The plane skidded on wet grass and clipped some wire fencing before coming to rest. Fire crews were quick to drain the fuel from the plane. No one was injured and the aircraft sustained relatively minor damage to its underbelly and port engine cowling.
But I think the important thing is that the excellence of the airmanship shown by the pilot in that he, in front of his friends, aborted the takeoff and spoilt a day's flying.
The incident will now be reported to Air Services Australia and the plane will be thoroughly checked before it's allowed back into the air. Dr. Coulthard says it's difficult to see how the incident could have been avoided.
And even with all the checks in the world, the moment the aircraft starts to roll, that's when things go wrong. And I'm quite certain that he would have conducted the proper checks on his way out to the starting point for the takeoff.
Jenny Crouch, NBN News.
Side, but Wexford is giving plenty with 150 metres left to go. She's still out in front of Prince Barracus, now in the clear, but Wexford is hanging on, and Wexford leads all the way to win the St Ledger. Wexford is first, I think.
And the roughie of the field started at 16-1 with bookmakers and returned even bigger prices on the New South Wales TAB. Wexford paid $20.40 and $4.10, helping boost the trifecta to $1,222. Racing also today was at Randwick, the sixth event over 2,400 metres. The combination of Waterhouse and Dye does it again. Stony Bay, $10.20 and $2.90. Ask the Way to $1.60 and $2.40 for Buzz Off. The trifecta, $277.20. The early signs were good for Newcastle. The Falcons raced to a big lead thanks to pinpoint accuracy across the court. The locals' lead ballooned to 10, forcing radical changes to Perth's tactics. David Van Dyke got the message. Dumped from the Falcons roster at the end of last year, the American import got sweet revenge. Tony Jensen kept Newcastle in it. But the Wildcats took the lead by the main break, only to increase it further in the second half. Van Dyke's haul of 29 helping Perth to a 21-point victory, Newcastle slipping out of the top six.
Spanning 100 years of history, Avondale College is one of the oldest private tertiary institutions in Australia. Centring around the original place of learning, Bethel Hall at Cooranbong, southwest of Newcastle, today's centenary celebrations lured politicians, students and teachers. Offering a range of higher education courses including arts, science and theology, the Seventh-day Adventist College was founded by members of the church with a strong emphasis on a Christian environment. Numbers at the Cooranbong campus have swelled from just 2 students in 1897 to 700 graduate and postgraduate pupils.
Back in the 1950s and 60s, the college underwent a major building program, and from the 70s onwards, with the changes to higher education in Australia. We've moved to the point where we offer a number of recognised degrees.
Centenary celebrations will continue throughout the week. Vanessa Spark, NBN News.
Newcastle has finally caught the attention of the nation as it celebrates 200 years, but the headlines read betrayal, not happy birthday. And there weren't any presents from the Prime Minister. Little consolation for the 2,500 workers who will lose their jobs, but the federal government will join its state counterpart to help retrain them. Workers will hold a rally on Friday to decide what industrial action to take. It'll be followed by a meeting of National Steel Union bosses on Monday.
What we'll be putting to that ACTU meeting is that we take national industrial action against all BHP companies.
Newcastle Council is looking ahead. It says yesterday's announcement is the beginning, not the end.
We no longer will be a heavy manufacturing city, that over time will become very much like anywhere else. We're going to be we're going to be a pale imitation of the Gold Coast.
The Newcastle of the future will be built on coal, aviation, education and light manufacturing. Tourism is also a vital ingredient in a new recipe, with 2 controversial proposals for hotels on the foreshore looking more likely than ever.
Obviously, things like the foreshore will no longer be our own. We're going to share them with visitors if they mean money for us.
The experts are also talking up Newcastle, BHP's culling of workers in the 80s, preparing the city for its latest setback.
In the long term, I think the future is relatively optimistic. The economy is robust.
The town will reluctantly absorb it. We won't want to see any jobs lost, but we will have to absorb it. And Newcastle people have got the reputation of sticking together and pulling through.
In many ways, the closure of the steelworks gives Newcastle a fresh start, as BHP wasn't only the big Australian, but the big polluter.
BHP contributes about 1/3 of the particulate pollution load to the atmosphere, that's dust, about 80% of the sulfur dioxide, and something like 85% of the nitrogen oxides.
But it may take much longer for the cloud to clear over BHP's battered public image. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
There was a sense of occasion at today's ceremony, which brought together graduates from the University of Newcastle and the Hunter Institute of Technology. The Ourimbah facility was established in 1989 and is still seen as an innovative move in tertiary education. Today's event has been the first of its type in New South Wales.
It's very significant in that it does demonstrate the way in which we organise tertiary education these days, with multiple entries, multiple exits and a great variety, wide variety of choice.
Today's graduates were presented with awards ranging from certificates to degrees and postgraduate qualifications.
I'm really glad to actually have something that I can take home and show my mum.
And an honorary degree has been given to Ed Manners from the Sun newspaper for his efforts to establish a tertiary education facility on the Central Coast.
Lots of people helped to get the university built, and it's very nice for them to know that a local is getting this award, because we all like that sort of participation.
Jenny Crouch, NBN News. The practice has sparked a strong community backlash, but a council committee meeting has voted to continue the arrangement after hearing from representatives from the RSPCA and the Combined Universities Lab Animal Service. Council heard cats and dogs from the Chumhaven Pound are treated humanely and play an important role in scientific research. Mayor Doug Eaton says the work on dogs has led to advances in heart treatment and resulted in a reduction in heart attacks. However, his views aren't shared by all his colleagues.
I don't believe this is so. There are other sources of getting animals besides taking those that have been surrendered to the pound or those that have been captured, and I don't believe that we should be doing that.
2,000 dogs are put down at the Shire's pound every year. At the moment, 700 of those are being sent for scientific research. Resident Lee Wazowski has launched a campaign against the practice. She's particularly concerned the animals are suffering before they're put down.
Usually they have to go to Coolas for anything up to a month or more, and they're suffering through this whole period from the time they're picked up off the street to the time they're on that university table ready to have the needle to be put to sleep.
The matter will go before a full council meeting in a fortnight when a final decision will be made. Jenny Crouch, NBN News.
Environment workers from 10 island nations, including Fiji, Tonga, Papua New Guinea and Micronesia, are using local coastal zones as a window on the future for where they live.
They do face very similar problems, and as everybody in this region already knows, we've got the complex of a rapidly growing population. We have industries such as the coal mining and steel industries for a little while yet, and ecotourism, general tourism, all these sorts of things that other islands are also grappling with.
As well as taking in the accomplishments of the Shortland Wetlands Centre carved out of industrial wasteland, the visitors will also talk to local government planners, researchers and representatives of the fishing industry.
Nothing's been hidden. People are talking honestly about the pollution effects. They are talking honestly about the conflicts between the needs to develop and the environment. And I think from that point of view, more than the answers, they've got the right questions.
A night watchman at the old State dockyard and tug crews spotted a 4-metre runabout apparently abandoned and drifting with its lights on around 7 last night. The pilot launch went to investigate and towed the boat back to the wharf. On board, a distressed dog, the faithful companion of the 31-year-old Waratah man. Dane Gilligan offered to take his next-door neighbour Peter Masters out for a fish yesterday, but hasn't been seen since.
He loved fishing, you know. It was his second life was fishing, sort of thing. That I knew about him, you know. He's honoured me to go fishing and with him sort of things, different times.
The crew of the police launch searched into the night and were back again early this morning. Fears for Mr Gilligan's safety grew with the revelation that he suffered a medical condition and may have had a seizure and fallen overboard.
Seemed to be, like yesterday, he was very well, you know. He didn't seem anything wrong with him or no distress really yesterday.
EduSpeak, education.
EduSpeak, yes.
EduSpeak. To do with behaviour modification.
No, it's to do with career stage.
It may not look like these teachers are hard at work, but more than 40 are learning new techniques on how to improve the learning and behaviour of boys at school. The recent national study, which showed boys with low literacy skills are more likely to be unemployed at age 19 compared with girls, complements the latest research from New Zealand.
From about the age of 8, the boys started to fall behind the girls academically. And they put that down to the disruptive behaviour that boys indulge in class, but also their lack of attention. Like if something happens in the class, the boys are the first ones to forget what it is they're there for and follow something else.
Today's interactive sessions, organised under the Newcastle University's Men's and Boys Project, were designed for teachers to pass on their new ideas.
Well, usually these in-service days, many of them are very theoretical in structure. This one really is very practically oriented and something we hope to be able to use in the classroom.
The boys don't know how to communicate, how to talk to each other well, and to get them started there and to change their attitudes towards learning, to make it a positive thing, that it's good.
"43-year-old Ian Anderson, a senior mine inspector, spent most of today being cross-examined by Craig Leggett QC, who's representing the Department of Mineral Resources. Mr Anderson admitted he had inspected the shafts of the Young Wallsend Colliery in late 1994, but he claimed water wasn't apparent to him and he saw no evidence to warrant further action. The mine inspector has been questioned about his part in approving an application by the company to mine the area where the tragedy occurred. Mr Anderson claims he was asked only to approve the stability of pillars and not the general plan. He says he didn't indicate he was limiting his assessment only to pillar stability, as he was only doing what he was specifically asked to do. The approval is largely being blamed for the disaster, as the men were mining so closely to the old workings which were full of water. The mine inspector has denied he could have prevented the November tragedy by taking a bigger part in the approval process. Jenny Crouch, NBN News.
More than just playing games, this group of students is learning how to lose their inhibitions and express themselves freely. Part of a drama course at Warners Bay High School, 8 of the students are on a 3-week exchange from Thailand. Accompanied by 2 teachers, the group's visit is the first cultural exchange of its kind in the region. The group has experienced many facets of Australian life, the focus on performing arts helping to overcome the language barrier.
Because it's a creative and performing arts emphasis, it's made the communication much more easy, because we've focused on music, we've focused on art, we've focused on drama, and they've all been essentially hands-on things.
With no drama or art courses in the Thai school curriculum, it's the first time the group has taken such classes, which has helped boost their confidence.
Have a time knowing each other, and drama is very good because you can show your feeling and your ability when you study drama.
The entire school turned out for a farewell presentation today. A group of Warners Bay students will return the visit next year. Simone Cobb, NBN News.
Maitland Council's management plan, including next year's budget, went on display today for public comment. It canvasses two options, a 3.1% rate rise and a 6.1% increase. The smaller is in line with state government limits on rate rises.
The whole concept of rate pegging is an absurdity.
The Mayor argues with increases in state charges and decreases in federal funding, the 3% increase would mean a number of planned projects would have to be ditched. Among them new roadworks and a bund wall at the council's waste depot to stop leaching of toxins into the environment.
If we decide as a council to make the decision to build those roads and to build the bund wall, then we would either go into deficit or ask the Minister for a rate increase.
Wanting to avoid a deficit, the Mayor favours asking the government for the 6% increase or an extra $30 to the average rates bill. Coupled with an environment levy agreed to last year, most bills would go up by about $70. While a number of councillors oppose the bigger increase, Councillor Martin believes ratepayers will recognise the need for it.
I would think the majority of people realise that if you do want the best, you're going to have to pay that little bit extra.
The budget is on display for 28 days. Meanwhile, Newcastle Council will release details of its proposed budget tomorrow. Phil Hind, NBN News.
The car park was a creek, the ground a quagmire, the stand a pool of water.
We have to think of the players and we also have to think of the safety of both the players and the patrons. It's certainly atrocious weather.
The under-20 second and first grade matches were all postponed. It's hoped the games will be played during the State of Origin split round.
I've spoken to South's people and they're quite happy to postpone the game.
And rugby league at Marathon Stadium wasn't the only sporting washout in the city today. Hockey at the adjoining International Centre at Broadmeadow was also cancelled because of dangerous playing conditions.